Hello everyone, this is Avery. Today, my group will talk about the famous story Little Women. I will introduce the beginning of the book. Let's see how this beautiful story starts. In this picture, you can see the four March sisters. From left to right, they are Meg, Jo, Amy, and Beth. Their father is away at war, so they live a simple life with their mother. Meg is pretty and kind. Jo is brave and loves writing. Amy is artistic, and Beth is very quiet and loves music. They are all very different, but they love each other very much. Next is Christmas morning. Even though the family is poor, the sisters are very generous. They decide to give their special Christmas breakfast to a hungry neighbor family. They feel happy because helping others is the best gift. Later, their rich neighbor, Mr. Lawrence, hears about this. He is so touched that he sends them a big, wonderful dinner as a surprise. After Christmas, Meg and Jo go to a New Year's party. Jo is a bit shy, so she hides in a corner. There, she meets Laurie, the lonely boy from next door. They talk a lot and become fast friends. When Meg hurts her foot at the party, Laurie kindly helps them get home safely. This is the first time the girls get to know the boy next door. Finally, Jo hears that Laurie is sick. She bravely goes to his big house to visit him. She brings him stories and makes him laugh. Laurie is very happy because he was very lonely before. This is the start of a great and long friendship between the two families.
In this part of Little Women, Beth becomes friends with Mr. Lawrence, Laurie's grandfather. Beth is very shy, but she loves music and often admires the piano in his house. When Mr. Lawrence learned about this, he kindly allowed her to play it. Mr. Lawrence gently reveals that he once had a granddaughter, now deceased, who was much like Beth. Beth later gave him a pair of slippers she made herself, and in return, he gave her a small piano that once belonged to his granddaughters. Around the same time, Amy has trouble at school. She brings pickles to impress her classmates, but her teacher discovers them and punishes her in front of everyone. Amy feels deeply embarrassed and no longer wants to return to school. Soon after, Jo and Laurie plan to go to the theater. Amy wants to go too, but Jo refused. Angry at being left behind, Amy burned a notebook full of the stories that Jo has spent years writing. Jo is heartbroken and refuses to forgive her. Later, while Jo and Laurie are skating, Amy follows them onto the ice. The ice suddenly breaks, and Amy falls into the freezing water. Jo hears her cry out and is paralyzed with fear. Fortunately, Jo and Laurie manage to save her. Amy wakes, and Jo embraces her. All is forgiven. Later, Meg is invited to stay with some wealthy friends. She enjoys dressing up, attending parties, and experiencing a richer lifestyle. During her visit, she meets many new people and spends time in a world very different from her own. While at the party, Meg overhears two girls gossiping about her. Back at home, the sisters continue their activities in the Pickwick Club, where they write stories, poems, and newspapers for fun. They eventually invite Laurie to join the club, and he gladly accepts. The sisters and Laurie become even closer friends, spending more time together and sharing their ideas and adventures.
The four March sisters once tried a unique experiment, doing absolutely no work for a week. It sounded great, but things quickly went wrong. They messed up meals, and Beth's canary even died of neglect. Their mother used this to teach them a lesson. Total idleness brings misery, and we need a balance between work and play. Soon after, their neighbor Laurie invited them to a camp-style lunch with his wealthy friends. The oldest sister, Meg, was looked down on because she works as a governess. Luckily, Laurie's tutor, Mr. Brooke, stepped in to defend her, praising her independence. This moment sparked a special connection between them. Later, everyone gathered in the woods to share their big dreams. Laurie wanted to escape to Europe to become a musician, but talking with the girls made him realize his duty to stay with his lonely father. Meanwhile, Jo was secretly chasing her writing dreams. She sneaked into town to submit 2 stories to a newspaper. When her work was published and he actually got paid, the family was incredibly proud of her talent. But their peace was shattered in November by a telegram saying their father was gravely ill in a hospital. As their mother prepared to leave, Jo made a huge sacrifice to help pay for the trip. She went out and sold her beautiful long hair, her only pride, for $25. Though she secretly cried into her pillow that night. Her sacrifice showed how deeply this family loved and supported each other through their toughest times.
Mrs. March leaves home to care for Mr. March, whose health has worsened in Washington. Before leaving, she encourages her daughters to be brave, stay hopeful, and keep busy with their work. At first, the girls follow her advice and work hard, but after a week, they gradually become less responsible. One day, Beth learns that the Hummel family needs help because their baby is sick. While Meg, Jo, and Amy all find excuses not to visit, Beth decides to go herself despite feeling unwell. Unfortunately, she catches scarlet fever and soon becomes seriously ill. As Beth's condition worsens, Jo spends much of her time caring for her and begins to appreciate Beth's kindness, selflessness, and strong faith. When Beth falls unconscious, the family fears the worst. Laurie secretly contacts Mrs. March and arranges for her return. On the 10th night, everyone stays awake by Beth's bedside, expecting a decisive change in her condition. Just after midnight, Beth's fever finally breaks, giving the family renewed hope. By dawn, Mrs. March arrives home, bringing comfort and relief to everyone. Meanwhile, Amy is staying with Aunt March. Influenced by Esther, the French maid, Amy develops a habit of daily prayer and self-reflection. She becomes more obedient and thoughtful, hoping to overcome her selfishness. Learning that Beth once wrote a simple will deeply moves Amy and inspires her to think more seriously about life and her own behavior.
In chapters 21 to 23 of Little Women, the March family goes through a lot of drama, a big reunion, and some romance. First, Laurie plays a childish prank by writing a fake love letter from Mr. Brooke to Meg. Once Jo finds out, Laurie apologizes, and Jo even helps Laurie make up with his grandfather after a big fight. Next, Christmas brings the best prize ever. Mr. March comes back home safely. While everyone is celebrating, Jo starts to worry because Meg is totally focused on Mr. Brooke and drifting away from the family. Finally, Mr. Brooke confesses his love. Meg is hesitant at first, but when Aunt March shows up and lectures her about marrying rich, Meg stands up for him. She realizes that she actually loves him and accepts his proposal. As part 1 ends with an engagement, Jo is left with bittersweet feelings about losing her sister. In conclusion, the story shows that Little Women is really about how women grow up under the pressure of war and strict social rules. By looking at education, work, and marriage, the story shows how these girls learn to think for themselves and become independent. First, The Civil War changes everything. It forces women to go out and work, but it also brings a lot of pressure. Society expects women to give up their own happiness, which is why the March family chooses to have no Christmas gifts while the men are fighting in the army. But true growth happens because the sisters make their own choices. In education, they learn from their mother that inner goodness is more important than a fancy school. In work, even though it is tough, they learn to support themselves. And in marriage, they show the most powerful change. May gives up her dream of wealth to marry for true love, while Jo rejects traditional expectations to protect her freedom. In the end, this shows that despite social pressures demanding women to be passive, genuine happiness happens when they refuse to be controlled. The ultimate lesson of Little Women is that true female growth means breaking away from old traditions, standing on their own feet, and deciding their own future. Thanks for your listening.